Hello, my name's Bryony. I work for the Careers Service at the University of Bristol and I support postgraduate researchers. In this short video, I'm going to talk about some of the career options beyond academia for PGRs. I will cover where PGR graduates work, understanding the labour market as a postgraduate researcher and where you fit in, what employers outside of academia are looking for, and how you can show them that you've got these transferable skills as a researcher. What do postgraduate researchers do after they graduate? This data is taken from Vitae that they surveyed 2,500 doctoral graduates 3.5 years after they completed their PhD, and they asked them about what they were doing in relation to their work. They found that 17% were working in academia doing research and 21% were working in academia in teaching roles. There was also 21% working in higher education, so within universities, but they were doing things outside of research or teaching. So actually what this data shows us is that the vast majority of doctoral graduates were working outside of academia 3.5 years after they finished their PhD. So what were they doing? So let's take a look a little closer to home. What are University of Bristol PGR graduates doing after they graduate? This is taken from the Graduate Outcomes Survey from 2017-18 leavers, and it surveys students 15 months after they graduated. This is a snapshot of some of the employers that were employing Bristol PGR graduates. So we can see the NHS was a big employer, the University of Bristol, but not necessarily always in an academic role. A few government departments there and the civil service. Dyson, which is based in Bristol. UK Research and Innovation, so that's a funding council for higher education, which is a popular employer of PGR graduates. And then Researchers in Schools, which is an organisation that places researchers in schools to teach. So a variety of different organisations there. And what kind of jobs were Bristol PGR graduates doing 15 months after they graduated? So remember, this is people who are working outside of academia, and it's a snapshot of some of the roles that they were doing after they graduated from their research degree. There's a huge range here from educational psychologists, civil servants, data scientists, to publishing editors, centre directors, production controllers, right through to clinical trial managers, science communications, teacher and head of department, or working in actuary, trading analysis as a trading analyst or a financial consultant. So there really is no limit to what you can do after you graduate with a research degree, and I think some of these roles showcase the amazing things that our PGR graduates have gone on to do. If perhaps some of these roles interest you, it'd be worth exploring what's involved in that position in a bit more detail by reading some job descriptions. And if we move away from the quantitative data and have a look at some of the qualitative data collected by the Graduate Outcomes Survey, I think this question and the responses to it are really interesting. It asks those students that are surveyed, was your qualification required for the role? So here I'm just looking at postgraduate researcher responses, and we can see that 51% of them are saying that both the level and the subject of qualification was a formal requirement for the role. So we might expect that in many of the academic jobs that you're applying for, and perhaps some of the jobs in research, scientific research and development. However, 23% were saying that while the qualification was not a formal requirement, it did give them an advantage. And I think that's going to be a common finding if you're going for roles outside of academia. So it's rare to see many jobs advertising a PhD as a formal requirement, but it should give you a huge advantage when applying for many different roles outside of academia. Now I'm going to talk about the postgraduate labour market in a bit more detail and help you think about where you might want to position yourself as a postgraduate research graduate. So we can think about the postgraduate labour market in 4 quadrants. This diagram is taken from the website Jobs on Toast, and it's a really handy way to help position yourself in the postgraduate labour market. It talks about moving within your sector and using your subject-specific knowledge or your transferable skills. So for example, we can see in quadrant number 1, academic, that you're working in the same sector, which would be higher education, and you're using your same subject knowledge, so you're working in academia. But say you want to stay working in higher education within a university, but you want to start relying more on your transferable skills, so moving away from your subject-specific discipline. That would place you in quadrant 2, thinking about an alternative academic career. So those are the roles that I mentioned at the beginning of the presentation, where you're working in a university but not as an academic. And there are loads of different roles you can do in this position. For example, working in public engagement, in the Bristol Doctoral College, managing a research centre, library services, student support, etc. Postgraduate researchers are really well placed to go for these types of roles because you often understand how higher education institutions work, and you have an affinity for working with students and value universities as institutions. Let's have a look at the diagram again and think about quadrant 3. So this is when you would be moving outside of higher education, so into a different sector, but still relying on your subject-specific disciplinary knowledge. So this is a popular quadrant for many postgraduate researchers that want to move out of academia after their research. And this places you in quadrant 3, thinking about research, publishing and consultancy as a sector or an area to go into. So you're working outside higher education, but you're using your disciplinary knowledge. PhD graduates and Masters by Research graduates are really well placed to go into this field because you have a really high level of disciplinary understanding, for example, if you want to work in research or academic publishing, but you also have loads of transferable skills that make you very adept at moving into these areas. For example, in consultancy, you can often use your subject knowledge, but you're working more directly with clients on applying your research knowledge into problems that clients might have to help them solve them. And finally, the fourth quadrant there, thinking about professional roles, is moving outside of the higher education sector, relying mostly on your transferable skills, positioning yourself in these professional roles, which could be anything from teaching to project management to starting your own business. Let's think about what employers outside of academia are looking for in their recruits. This survey is taken from the Confederation of British Industries survey, and it asked different types of employers of varying sizes across the UK why they struggle to recruit graduates. You can see from the responses here that the most common reason they struggle to recruit is a lack of work readiness, skills and behaviour in graduates in the labour market. I'll talk a bit more about what we mean about work readiness, but it's worth remembering that although your PhD gives you a qualification, it doesn't necessarily qualify you specifically for any specific role. Therefore, demonstrating a work readiness is going to be really important in addition to showcasing your research skills. Work readiness can be broken down into 3 different areas: character, knowledge and skills. When we think about character, we think about individual traits and strengths that enable someone to flourish at all stages of their lives and deal with workplace challenges in innovative and productive ways. When we think about knowledge, we talk about a rigorous and rich subject knowledge with specific expertise and broad disciplinary understanding and appreciation of its application, which of course you develop as a researcher. And then skills are the application of that knowledge and characteristics in real-world scenarios through teamwork, leadership, problem solving and communication. So when you're applying for roles beyond academia, you need to demonstrate how your character, knowledge and skills relate to the role you're going to. You develop a lot of really excellent transferable skills as a researcher, and you may be developing these in the whole range of things you're doing alongside your research and including your research itself. So whether that's organising a conference, presenting at conferences, writing your thesis, running experiments, or being a research rep, you should include all of the activities that you do during your research degree when you're demonstrating evidence of transferable skills to employers. What I've done here is listed some of the things you might be doing during your research and given some examples of the transferable skills that I think you gain from doing them. So for example, managing a research project can be talked about in relation to transferable skills in project management, time management, budget management, making cost-benefit analysis of a project, and planning and organisation skills. Successfully applying for grants and receiving funding, whether that's for your master's, for your PhD, or for a different piece of work you've done during your time here. You can talk about your transferable skills in writing competitively, making compelling arguments, being convincing and persuasive, and influencing people. The rest of the list here are just examples of things you do during research and the transferable skills that they give you. It's worth thinking about everything you do during your research and making a list of the transferable skills you've got from doing it. This will be really useful when you're applying for roles beyond academia. What should your next steps be after watching this video? Well, remember that non-academic careers need attention too, and there's lots of things you can do to help you progress in applying for roles beyond academia. Gaining experience, developing skills, networking, and learning how to progress in the recruitment process are all really important when going for roles outside of academia. I've provided some examples here of how you might progress along each of these areas. The Career Service is here to help you take your next steps, whatever stage you're at in your career planning. Use the Career Service website to find resources on getting experience, find out about the Bristol Plus Award, or book appointments to talk about your career planning or have a CV review. Use our live chat function to talk to us between 9:30 and 4:30 on weekdays, and there'll always be somebody there to answer your questions and point you in the right direction. We look forward to working with you during your time at Bristol and for 3 years after you graduate. Thank you.